Avenue Radio Sharing Voices. I'm doing Blaze Vincent. First and foremost, it's an honor to be able to lend my voice to such a historic and wonderful platform. Shout out to Tony Benton, who's seen something in me and offered me the opportunity to be able to have my own show on community radio and to be able to share my voice, but also use this platform to share voices with other community members. Today, I got a very special host, very special guest for my first show, my spiritual brother, Heru TchaasAmen. But before we get into my guest, I just want to just share a little bit about myself. I was raised in the Central District of Seattle, Bryan Manor. I moved there as a kid with my three other siblings and my mom in 1992. And my mom stayed there until last year before they started restructuring it. I grew up, spent half my childhood in the Central District of Seattle, but also down south where my dad's side of the family's from in North Carolina. And unfortunately, as a young teenager at the age of 17, along with my brother who was 16, I was incarcerated as a juvenile, tried as an adult, and spent 18 years of my life in prison. And I've been out since 2022. But in that dash on the inside, I was connected with community, and community supported me in my journey. It's a community supporting me in my liberation. I had a early release date of 2033. And obviously, as you can see, it's 2024. And I was released on 2022. And if it wasn't for community, I really can say I wouldn't be here today. So I dedicate, this platform to community. I do want to give a special dedication to a young brother who I met when I got out, who's no longer here with us, Elijah Lewis. And I'm sure my young brother would be proud that I'm out here doing something that I dreamed of that's for community and by community. And so I definitely want to dedicate this first show to my brother who's in a better place right now, Elijah Lewis. So we're going to get right to it and introduce my very special guest, Heru TchaasAmen. Peace, brother.
Peace. It's great to be here, brother.
It's an honor to have you. It's really an honor to have you. And so, being that this show is Centering Voices, I wanted to bring you on. I want you to give our opportunity to share a little about yourself. And I know you do a lot of things. And so what I wanted you to really share with us today is what's your area of focus in recent, and then we'll spread it out to the bigger picture, just how you serve community. So the floor is yours, brother.
For sure. Hey, man, first of all, I appreciate you for having me on this inaugural show. It's a big deal. I'm so proud of the things that you're doing in community, with your life, with your family, the example that you're setting, the role model that you're becoming. It's brilliant to watch you blaze and shine and light up, the Pacific Northwest. Just really proud of you and grateful for the opportunity to be here. Like you said, I do a lot of things. So I teach Qigong, I teach meditation, I teach breathing, I teach, mindfulness. I work with young kids. Right now, my main focus is really about focusing on our youth, our young people. There's a lot of violence going on in our community. We're seeing our young men. You mentioned Elijah Lewis, good brother, gunned down at the age of 23. But we're seeing this going on in our community at an alarming rate. Our young men, women, and babies getting murdered. It's because of a lifestyle and an access to violence and upbringing that we have here, in the Northwest and in the United States as a whole, that's not very principled. So my main focus is really bringing back the principles of our people, the things that we lost during the transatlantic slave trade, during the diaspora, the things that we weren't encouraged to participate in, really understanding principled lifestyle and approaches. So, you mentioned that Heru TchaasAmen is really about understanding how to live truth, how to understand that we're one with each other, how to understand that we're divine beings and live that out loud, knowing that if I understand that I won't hurt, if I hurt you, I hurt myself. If I hurt myself, I hurt you. So we take care of one another, really bringing that back to community, those principled approaches to living. I do that by, really instilling the 11 laws of Ma'at in everything I do. So when I teach Qigong, which is, about life force development and cultivation, the 11 laws are there. When I teach mindfulness and meditation, the 11 laws are there. When I'm teaching conflict resolution, the 11 laws are there. When I'm teaching dietary lifestyles, the 11 laws are there. when I'm diving into accugraph analysis and really understanding the meridian life flow, the 11 laws are there. These are the ancient teachings of our people, just bringing them back, rebuilding the civilization of our people, and reinstituting that in the lives of our young ones, starting there, and also our adults as well.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And what I want to focus on and talk a little bit more and dig deep is the 11 laws of Mod. And so, when I was on the inside and I was young and seeking knowledge of self on the inside, I got to reading a lot of books and really started centering towards the books I was reading by Black authors and Black history that was created and authored by, us, right? And trying to go back farther. And as I searched in my spirituality in combination with my studying of my history, it led me to the 11 laws of Mod. And I discovered originally the 11 laws of Mod, ultimately through the book Matuna Tur, Volume 1 by Shechem or Rainier Avenue, who was the author. And it was through those books that, I remember in the preface, he talked about like how our ancestors before colonization in Northeast, what they call Northeast Africa, what we know as Kemet, right? How we advanced not only just technologically and socially and economically, but spiritually, right? And experienced the God in us and our divine being.
Right.
And in that preface, what stuck out to me was the paraphrase was he said, through those authors in talking about the greatness of our ancestors, right? And how they lived and what they practiced, that if it was so great and phenomenal and so healthy, right, and empowering for ourselves, then why aren't we trying to practice that right now?
Right.
And he said that was why he created the Matuna Tur series, Volume 1, Volume 2, Trail Life Meditation, and all the other books that he had actually written. So that's when I came into the 11 laws of Mod. And so I would love for you to just dive in. Let's do a dive to what the 11 laws of Mod are and how important it is for us to know these things about ourselves and practice them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Shout out to Rainier Avenue in the first, second Rainier Avenue in the first, my spiritual father, the chief priest of a Society, of which I'm a member. Yes, he brought back these 11 laws, these ways of our people. And 11 laws of Ma'at are really spiritual organ systems, if you will, spiritual faculties, the spiritual body of each individual, each person in the world, each divine being in the world, I should say. And there are 11 principled approaches to the way you think, the way you respond to situations, your natural reflexive responses and things of that nature. But there are also these ideals of how to be, the self-imagery. So we start out at the first law. The first law is the law of Amen. And it's really the understanding that you are made in the likeness of peace, that nothing can disturb. That our job coming back to earth or being on this planet is to reclaim that nature of peace in all things so that we can really enjoy life. The enjoyment of life is enjoying our center, and that's our image of peace. So we're created in that image. If we operate from that perspective, then we understand that there's the second law, that there's nothing against us, which is the law of Osir. The law of Osir says that we're one with all things. If I'm one with all things, I don't have any adversaries. I don't have any enemies. That means that every situation that I come into contact with is really designed to remind me of that first law, that I am created in the image of peace. So if I look at it from that perspective, I look at these situations as opportunities to grow, to gain access to wisdom and spiritual power. The next law is the law of Tahuti. And the law of Tahuti is our oracular system, our oracle system, divination system, but it's the word or voice of the creator of God that really gives us an idea of lawful thinking, right? How to think lawfully and naturally. So this law really is, if my thinking is aligned with truth at all times, then I can access peace and power from deep within, right? And I can have that peace and power to protect me and keep me safe throughout this life, and to resolve conflicts in this world between me and my family, me and others, and things of that nature. I can find the win-win solution for all things. The next law is the law of Sekert, and that law is talking about our emotional responses to all things, right? If my emotions manifest in response to a lawful way of thinking, then I'm going to be emotionally sound, but also I'm going to gain access to power. That if my emotions now manifest in response to lawful thinking, my emotions have the power to really change community, change the world that we live in, because I can put power and energy behind my actions and attitudes. The next law is the law of Ma'at. And the law of Ma'at is about harmony. It's about balance. It's about becoming a vessel too, so that the creator can communicate through you to its creation. It's the highest act of love. If I become a vessel for the creator, then I'm going to interact with you correctly. It's understanding too that if I do become this vessel, that now I can protect the world because I'm not going to do the world harm. The next law, if I have the law of law, right, which is Ma'at, then I have the law of divine justice, which is Heru TchaasAmen. And this is about, rebalancing the scales. It's, often referred to as karma and things like that, but it's not revenge. It's understanding that if I do harm to you, I harm myself, because if we look at the first law or the second law, that I'm one with you, I'm one with all things, I can't hurt you because I'll hurt myself, and I can't hurt myself because I'll hurt you. But it's also this courage, the courage to really do some self-analysis, to take a look at yourself, to take a look at your lifestyle, and to begin to analyze that and make some changes to lift your consciousness up where it should be, which is away from the animal nature that we were born in, right? So it's this ability to have courage, to live out our dreams like you're doing now, but also to change the way that we're living. It's the idea of having the ability to cut off negative behaviors that no longer serve a purpose, or that we understand are not helpful to us. So it's that piece as well. It's not about attacking others. It's really about dealing with ourselves, right? And then the next law is, the law that I was named after, that law of Heru, which represents the will. And the will is this identity, or this understanding that we have this freedom of choice, right? And we all talk about it as human beings, right? We say, oh, I have this freedom of choice. And so for human beings, it's the mindset, I can do whatever I want to, whenever I want to. But lawful response to that law is saying that I have the power, but not the right to disobey God's law. Because if I do disobey the law, then I have to deal with karma, right? Like if I was to walk off of a 20-story building, I'm going to hit the concrete eventually, and then my life is over, right? I can't avoid the law of gravity. So it's understanding that. So it's really having this understanding that because I love the law, because I love myself, which is the law, then I'm going to align with the principles of the universe. And I'm going to use my free will to do the right things at the right times for the right reasons, right? That's true freedom. I'm going to operate within the law. So it's the will that we all possess, and the freedom of choice that we have access to. The next laws are really focused on transformations. How do I change? When I realize that I'm broken, when I realize that I've flawed, or I made mistakes, or realize that my mindset is not where it should be, how do I change? The next law in this tree is the law of Heru. And we're actually in that cycle right now, the law of Heru. And that's your imagination. You have this great ability to see yourself. You spoke earlier about how you saw yourself doing, you dreamed about this. So this is the law that says I'm going to visualize myself as a divine being, a healthy being. I'm going to visualize myself getting along with others. I'm going to visualize myself healing my relationships. I'm going to visualize myself, being peaceful in these moments that used to cause me stress or distress, right? I'm going to see myself successful. I'm going to visualize that. And I'm only going to visualize that. I'm going to visualize as a divine being. I'm not going to visualize as a broken broken person. The next law is the law of verbal thinking, which is Sebek, right? And that's, how do you affirm? How do you believe? A lot of times we say things like, this and that makes me sick and stuff like that. But positive self-talk or divine self-talk is saying that I'm going to process this information as a divine being. So I'm going to think as a divine being. I'm going to affirm as a divine being. I'm going to rationalize as a divine being. I'm not going to rationalize as a broken being anymore. So that's that law. The next law is a law that I love, is the law of Aset. The law of Aset is about sacrifice, right? It's about prioritizing our spiritual development and evolution. It's about cutting away from, these habits and these mannerisms that, identify us to the lower nature, or the person, or the human being we're trying to elevate to the divine character. So we're cutting away those behaviors. And this law really is about understanding that I'm willing to sacrifice my time, my energy, my focus, so that I can evolve into what I'm really supposed to be and destined to be. I'm going to embrace my destiny, which is also Sekert, right? And the final law is the law of Geb. And we spend a lot of time in these bottom two laws. We spend a lot of time of our lives focused as, on my habits, on my beliefs, on my expectations. And we spend a lot of time thinking that, I'm this last law, which is Geb, the physical plane, that I'm a physical being, right? It's the physical plane of my body, my electromagnetic forces, the atoms and molecules that I'm made of, the energy that I'm made of, that part of the spirit. So, but unfortunately, we've been taught in Western society to identify as a person, which is connected to the physical realm and connected to my habits. But to elevate, our ancestors understood that we had to pull consciousness is what we are. We had to pull consciousness up to the upper levels of the tree of life, understanding that I'm divine, that I'm one with all things, and peace is my nature. So the goal of the teachings that we work on is really to process this information, to place these truths deep within us, and to make this our reflexive response to every situation that we encounter.
Yeah, brother, listen, you dropped heavy knowledge in such a short period of time on us, right? Like heavy knowledge. And that's what I love about, with this show. I do want us to have deep dives, right? And then also, we can refer the audience to how to further do reading and studying to, come to awareness of this heavy jewels that you drop. And so what I want to tie into, right, is I want to tie into the 11 laws to back where you was talking about your emphasis of focus on, right, we get into the youth and stopping the violence, right? And so, I was a student, and I am a student, right, of the 11 laws. And so I'm going to run them backwards. Okay. Right. Because what I know is, like, when we're dealing with the tree of life, right, we're talking about elevation. So when you ran them from top to bottom, right, like from our divine self, like the apex, and then all the way down into like our human form. And you really pointed out with like the 10th sphere and the 9th sphere, Geb and Aset, respectively, right, on how like that's what we experience, because it's like we, as human beings, we can, or divine beings in human form, right, we can see our bodies. Right. And then with our emotions, we can feel our emotions. Like this is what's visceral, like a phenomenon that we know. Right. And so when we go from Geb, right, like the earth, like our bodies, and then Aset with our emotions. And then we talked about Sebek, where we talk about our intellect and like our thoughts and like, our language. Right. And then we go into, our the 7th sphere, Heru, our imagination. Right. So it's focusing on our emotions, our intellect, our imagination, like these are things that we know, right? And we know from the teachings that you can confirm, this is how we program ourselves. Right. These are the faculties in which we program ourselves to understand who our person to be, our personality to be, like how we move, like our habits, right? And then we go to the 6th sphere, right? Heru, which is our will, which is like the central of our divinity, where we can choose, right, to be our divine selves, or be whatever we can condition ourselves to be, right? It's a choice thing, right? That's what gives us a divine empowerment, right? It's a choice, right? While we're beings on this world, and it's like that Heru, right, which is your Heru, right? That's like the bridge to like our human physical form and our spiritual form. So we got the programming faculties down here with our intellect and our imagination and our emotions, and we got our will to choose. And then we're going into the divine principles of Herakuti, which resonates with me, like, the divine justice. Right. And understanding that, like the law of karma, like what you do, the consequences inside of the action. And then we're talking about Mat, like the divine plan, like how everything's connected in harmony, and how the universe and the science all put it together for everything to connect. And then we get into those 3 higher areas, right, which would you consider, I think you agree, like we're unfamiliar with, right, due to like our lack of awareness of our divine selves, and like the environment and structure and historically what we've been through, right? When we're talking about Sakurt, like the divine power, or Tahuti, our divine intellect and intuition, to where we don't have to think about things and be still and know everything, right? And then Amen, like our connection to everybody, and ultimately, the apex of Amen, of being at peace in all things, and our nature being at peace. And I wanted to run them backwards, and just to get right back to how you want to talk about how important it is to teach our youth, not only our youth, each other in our community, like how important it is for each of us to remind ourselves that our nature is peace, and how you understand how we understand that our true nature is peace, like that's like key and core for us getting to the root of the issues with the violence that's inside of our community. I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, when dealing with young people, I'm learning that a lot of our young people, they're used to game and talking, right? We can talk. Our parents talked to us and we still made some choices, right? What they need is some modeling. They need to see it. And so in action, they need to experience it. So my work has been recently focused on just teaching our young people simply how to breathe, right? To take them back, like have a space that's safe. We're in a school or what have you on a Saturday, hanging out, doing some qigong, but we really focus on the breath. We have to understand that once we get the breath under control, we get the breath back to where it's supposed to be. We stop operating, in the sympathetic faculties. We stop operating as a fight or flight situation. Not every situation is a cause for us to either attack or run away from. Our children and us, we're living in a stressful type of lifestyle. We're living from pain to pleasure. A lot of us are dealing with crises over and over again. And dealing with those situations ultimately brings our breathing up, and we're breathing like an animal. We're really out of control. What separates us from animals is the ability to choose, like you mentioned, that Heru faculty, so we can choose to control our breath. If we learn how to do that, we're breathing in through our nose. We're breathing down deep into our belly. We're not breathing into our chest. We calm the brain down. We slow the brain down. Now it's amenable to programming. So the goal then is to now place the truth into the brain, into those spiritual faculty centers that we talked about. When we place those that truth in those spiritual faculty centers, now these new habits become reflexive. We can start visualizing about how to deal with situations that used to cause us to get angry, have anxiety, freak out, and things like that. And I do it through movement and breathing. So when I'm teaching qigong, I'm having the kids move. I'm having the kids focus on their breath. I'm having them center themselves, and I'm having them bring their attention and their awareness deep inside of the body, understanding that the body is a void and it's full of space to be programmed, to have information and love there, and then connecting to all the things in the universe. Right, we're literally walking them through the laws, right, during the mindfulness activities, and then having them visualize just simple stuff like, what does it look like to take a test and be peaceful, not to be freaked out or scared, not to be worried about it? What does it look like to interact with, a so-called enemy, or deal with your parents when they're upset, and you're calm and you're peaceful and you're breathing naturally? Just literally go through the role play of calming your face and your mind and your body while you're visualizing this, right? Your brain is cool because your brain doesn't know that this hasn't happened in real life. So during this meditative and qigong space, when we focus on these right ways of thinking, our brain now thinks it's already happened. And so now it's a repeatable habit. So it's easier for us to enact these habits in our daily lives. And so that's what we're doing with qigong and meditation in the school system.
And so, yeah, man, before I get some feedback on that, I want to give a special shout out to Stackwell, local hip hop artist, my brother. Check him out, One Stackwell 206 at YouTube. He's making great music from our community. Also want to give a special shout out to my sisters and brothers of the Black Prisoners Caucus community group. By that, I couldn't make it at the mandatory meeting tonight, y'all, but I appreciate y'all showing up and sharing this moment with me, because it's us, right? It's community. And, the shout outs that I give to my sisters and brothers, right? We're committed to community work, and particularly to our youth, and particularly to creating conditions that we didn't have when we were youth, right? To end the cycles, to end the chains of items, to interrupt, the trajectory that a lot of us did. And some of our peers, a lot of our peers are gone, or a lot of our peers are incarcerated, right? So I would want to, the feedback that I got from you is we was talking about like being able to know that you have agency, right? This will to control your breath, right? And control your mind. Right. And control particularly when we talk about like first and calm your emotions, right? From the set aspect of it with the breathing, right?
Right.
You can settle yourself down. You can control with your mind, you control what you say and what you affirm, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot of times connected to triggering emotions, right? With language. Mm-hmm. And then also like your imagination.
Right.
So is it safe to say that with this will that a lot of times, like the decisions that we make that are like in reaction to like things in our environment, a lot of times it's not even necessarily what is happening in real time in our environment, but it's like how we perceive it. Yeah. And so we can create like with our minds, would you say with our will, we can create the mental environment for us to be at peace, even if it seems that there's chaos on the outside? Or just on the opposite end, when you do it the negative way, where you can be in a room full of peace, but if you lack the agency of your will to be able to be disciplined to control your mind, then you can perceive a peaceful place to be chaotic. And that's a lot of time what trauma does to us, right? So
Yeah.
I just want you to kind of talk here, because I think this is very important, like the significance of like, why is this important to teach our youth and ourselves to be able to start with controlling our breath?
Yeah.
And then how it builds from there to be able to have sound, healthy, and then really divine, like mental health.
For sure. The key is understanding that peace is not something that's outside of you. Peace is not a destination. Peace is not a concept that's foreign to us. Peace is actually who and what we are. Right. So we are beings of peace. So peace is our actual natural response. If we take a look at those laws, remember I said those laws are actually who you are, what you are. It's the elements of your spirit, your spiritual being. So if you are a being that's created in the image of peace that nothing can disturb, and if that's true, then chaos is things can be going on around us, but they don't necessarily affect us because that's not who or what we are. So the idea and the concept is to understand that situations provide stress to us because we believe they can provide stress to us, because we have this concept that stress is normalized to us. And we've been conditioned to think that this is normal behavior. Our goal is to overcome the conditionings and to realize that each situation, even in that situation that you described, if there's chaos all around us, oh, this is an opportunity for me to gain access to who and what I really am. Right. And a lot of times we're not making choices. We're actually, operating off of instinct. We're allowing our lower nature, our animal nature, right? That old school animal nature, the reptilian brain, mammalian brain, that fight or flight response to really control behavior. So it's the lack of a choice. And when we're identifying with that Heru faculty, we identify that we have the ability to make a choice. But we do this programming before we ever get to the situation of chaos. I'll take the time with the kids. We're focused on. I'm not telling you to make a decision in that moment while you're freaked out and panicking. I'm telling you to practice or pre-rehearse before you ever get to the situation, right? See yourself successful in the situation. Like you saw yourself sitting here doing a podcast before you ever walked in the door doing a podcast, right?
Yeah.
You didn't decide when you got here, start doing a podcast to visualize yourself, right? So we're teaching the kids the same thing. Hey, look, you know what? You cannot avoid adversity. You cannot avoid conflict. It's going to happen in our lives because we're in a world that has conflict. Since we know we can't avoid it, why don't we choose? And we have free choice. Why don't we choose to be at peace? Why don't I prepare myself to enter into a space and understand that every time I come into adversity, I'm going to respond in peace. Then I'm going to have access to my spiritual power. I'm going to access wisdom. We all want to be peaceful. We all want to be joyful. We all want to be happy. We all want, to be healthy. This is natural. So that's what's natural to us. Anything that's harmful to us, my teacher says, Rainier Avenue, the first says, anything that's harmful to you is not natural to you. Negative emotions like fear, anxiety, frustration, are detrimental to your well-being, your physical well-being, your mental acumen. So they can't be natural to you. They have to be foreign to you. Peace is natural to you because I can gain access to my full EQ and my full IQ, right? When I'm peaceful. So if I'm not peaceful, I lose all that ability. I need all of my acumen. You know what I mean? So I have to stay at peace.
Yeah, most def. And then, like I was telling my producer, like he Daniel, shout out to Daniel, right? For our first show, I was telling him that, 30 minutes per show, be able to fill it. We got heavy content over here. And so, we're coming into time, right? And so, it was a great way that you ended. And so what I wanted to end this show is I want you to share like what upcoming events you have as far as you rotating with the youth and the practices of mindfulness, meditation, Minnob, Qigong, etc. And where can we find you and where can people find you like on social media and all that to stay tapped in with the work that you're doing, brother?
For sure. The easiest way to find my upcoming events and where I'm at is on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as Heru Nefer. So HERUNEFER. You find me on Instagram. You'll see what's coming up. I teach Qigong every Saturday at 9 a.m. on Zoom, and it's free. It's free 99, so everybody can tap in. You know, I'm around at different parks. I'm around at different community centers. I'm around at health events and things like that. So you can dive in anytime. But find me on Instagram. You can find all my contacts on Linktree. You can tap into any of the meditation classes, any of the Qigong classes, any of the health events that we have going on. HERU.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
And my spiritual brother. And, you know, send us off like how we greet each other at Tapu. And this is Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Centering Voices, first episode. It's your host, yours truly, Blaze Vincent. Peace to all my family and friends who showed up to support. Peace to all those who video. And I look forward to continuing to rotate and share with other community members and centering y'all voices as y'all center the voices of our community.